A large part of being an avid member of the group that I used to be involved with was this persistent, near obsessive focus on your emotions. I was preoccupied with how I was feeling about literally everything and about how I was feeling was supposed to mean. Busy work, that. In my experience, there's always a fresh supply of emotions, especially if you're emotionally raw, so there's plenty to be getting on with. Just imagine that you're constantly, consciously focused on how you're feeling. Or if you're not just focused on how you're feeling, then you're doing a process to uncover the truth of how you're feeling. It's not hard to imagine how that preoccupation could take over your life. Hello and welcome back. My name's Andy Fellows and I make videos on destructive cults, damaging norms and just generally bad ideas. If you like the video that you're about to watch today, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell thing so that you'll get notified whenever I upload a video. So in the group, there's this thing about your emotions being your guidance system in life. And I think on face value, that is part of what could be good advice. Your emotions are important, obviously, but I don't think that they're the most important thing. We're emotional creatures and there's times where how we feel matters more than anything else to us. But there are other times when you have to put aside how you're feeling and do what you know is right. And I think that's just part of being a responsible adult, right? So I could see how you could shoehorn in something about how your values and what you know is right are just based on how you feel, but I feel like if we're saying that that's all those things are, then that might be oversimplifying things a little bit. But I think this is a dichotomy that at least most of us are dealing with pretty much every day at the moment. The overriding how you feel in the moment with what you know is the right choice. Do I really need to wash my hands again? My hands are so dry, I don't want to wash my hands again. Yes, you should wash your hands again. If you think that there's any risk, definitely wash your hands again just to be sure. There's worse things than having dry hands. It's better to be safe than sorry. So this, combined with this strike while the iron is hot approach to when is the right time to do a process, for me, way back when meant that most of the time I was fixating on my emotions. And I'm one of these people who finds it hard to figure out what they're feeling. I get all the feelings, but I don't always know what they mean. So as you can imagine, it was quite time consuming. And I don't imagine I'm alone in that. So I was focusing on my emotions and how I was feeling, but I was also focusing on how other people in the group were feeling. Because so much of how we connected with each other was on the basis of the pain that we shared in some way. Or the discovery of these supposedly deep secrets about ourselves and, these old traumas and things that were hidden and now we've been able to uncover them. These supposedly deep insights into ourselves. In my experience, there was a currency of emotions in the group and this kind of pageant-esque trotting out of deep emotional wounds in front of the group in the name of healing. I could see that maybe helping some people, but I can't imagine it would have helped the majority of people, even if it felt in that moment like there was some relief in it. I just don't know that it would necessarily have helped people in a substantial way. Not the way that it was done, at least. When I left, I'd given up on these processes and on overtly engaging in what I think could be kindly described as obsessive emotional rumination. Having spent so many years connecting first and foremost with people based on pain that I felt, when it came to connecting with people in a real way, in a genuine way, then I struggled. I didn't know what to say. And at first, the main challenge was staying in my authentic identity, staying connected with my actual self, rather than letting the cult-appropriate personality that I developed take precedence or re-emerge in moments that I felt uncomfortable. And that's still a challenge that I deal with today, really, though it's much less so than it was. Learning to stay connected with myself and not let that other version of me, this cult-appropriate version of me, take precedence and come out, if you like. It was an uncomfortable, humbling process, which was helped, I would say, by my gradual shift towards atheism. The difficulty was learning to connect with people genuinely on the basis of who we were as people rather than through the roles that I had learned to adopt throughout my time filling my head with this map of reality, right? I was a fixer and I was a know-it-all, but usually what I had were half-baked platitudes and facile explanations as to why things were the way that they were. When I eventually got past the cult identity reasserting itself so regularly, I started to connect with people on the basis of the next most familiar thing to me, which was emotions, or more specifically, pain. This all got tied up in a bouquet of trust issues that I picked up after leaving the group, when I had to accept both the conditional nature of relationships within the cult and also having to accept that someone that I'd looked up to and admired for quite a while seemed to have taken me for a ride. It took me a while to sort through all of that and untangle it. So a book we started listening to recently called Life Skills for Adult Children, which we really quickly stopped listening to because it kind of felt like a how-to for white suburban soccer mums. Maybe white and suburban isn't necessary before soccer mums, but still. In this book, they talked about the likelihood that someone who struggled as a child might grow up to relate to people on the basis of pain. And this highlighted for me that maybe this isn't just a cult issue, maybe it's more common than that, and maybe it's related to adverse childhood experiences. And that got me thinking about something that Hassan had said, which is that cults kind of end up regressing members to a sort of childlike state. By taking away any genuine autonomy or any substantial sense of agency that a person has in their life, and by making the rules absolute, basically a person doesn't have to think for themselves. They don't have to really make any decisions, right? They just have to do what the rules say. That's all they have to do, just follow the rules. And in groups like the one that I was involved in, which it's not quite there with the overt controlling and the rule book, though give it time, teachings are prescriptive. So when you accept that they're true, then they become a map of reality. Living in that way, your autonomy has limits set on it by convincing rules created by someone who claims to have perceived some kind of social law that others haven't, or claims to have a way to establish a new and better order in the world. The control is less overt, but the two group dynamics boil down to pretty much the same components, I would say. And despite the differences between them, the potential for negative consequences is still very much there. Bringing this back round to daily emotional rumination, you end up in these closed circles of thought that shrink the feedback loop between environment and interpretation of environment. And as the adaptable creatures that we humans are, it's understandable to expect that we might get used to something like that. And this doesn't stop with spiritual and religious cults either. It goes all the way to and through other toxic social settings as well. So when you leave, you have to relearn how to relate to people. You've got to figure out ways to connect with people without coming on too strong and spooking them, which isn't too much of a problem when you're all coming on too strong and just telling everybody about your deep emotional traumas right out of the gate. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong with talking about your genuine deep emotional pains, the difficult things in your life and so on, if you want to, but I think you got to know the person a little bit at least, or have a friendship or some kind of relationship established there, or like be paying them because they're a licensed professional. There are very few social settings where it's actually acceptable to sit there and monologue about your deep emotional pains as explanations for innocuous quirks in your personality or behavior. That said, we are moving towards a world now where, at least among millennials and Gen Zers, these kinds of conversations about mental health and the stigmas associated with them, are much more a topic of discourse. And I think that's incredible to see. But I think there's a timeless art and an ever-present value in connecting with a person on the basis of shared interests or a shared predicament, rather than deep-rooted emotional pain or unhealed wounds. Speaking about my own experience, it took me a while to learn to connect with people on a less immediately intimate basis. I think the trick to that has been remembering that friendships build over time, and that as you get to know people, more and more is shared by both sides. It's not just like a splurgy monologue just when you first meet. And the bond grows slowly and gradually. It doesn't start with love bombing and then end when you disagree with the leader for genuinely legit reasons. It doesn't consist of just talking about your core beliefs and your triggers and your shadow aspects and stuff like that. I've learned it can be about more than that. It can be about light-hearted things. It can be about video games and TV, if those things are what you want to talk about. You talk about TV shows, talk about films, talk about things that interest you both. Like for me, it might be like psychology, or maybe like an archaeology thing, or like a history thing, or like how cults work, or why people believe a given thing or don't. So many different things to talk about that aren't just that you can get to know someone through and like connect with them through. And then later, after we've gotten to know each other better, then we can share the more personal things. Then we can share the more intimate things if we want to, and we don't have to if we don't want to. And in that way, we can build strong bonds and long-lasting relationships that endure through hard times and become a source of strength when the going gets tough. Videos like this are made possible by my wonderful patrons, whose names you will see listed at the end of the video. If you like the video that you watched today and you want to help support the channel, the absolute best way to do that is through Patreon. There's a link to that in the description and also in the live chat. Please consider checking that out and supporting the channel in that way if you feel so inclined. I just spat them when I said that. Otherwise, please like the video, stick a comment below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. And before you go, let me just say one more thing. Please be kind and ask good questions. And I'll see you in the next one.